Here's our entire interview with Joe Bouchard, formerly of Blue Oyster Cult. He was with them from 1970 to 1986. Enjoy. Joe was there for the big album, Secret Treaties. In 74, Agents of Fortune. 1976, Don't Fear the Reaper. Spectres the following year. And remember, Fire of Unknown Origin. With Burnin' For You, Joe was with Blue Oyster Cult from 1970 to 1986. He has a brand new album. There are links in the description where you can pick it up. By the way, what are your students? Is there students or anybody? And I know cowbell will come up, but besides the cowbell, what do people ask you about the most? Besides the Don't Fear the Reaper?
Ooh, I don't know.
Is that a big one? It's cowbell.
Yeah, by far, Reaper. Is Burning for You is also a big one. I've done astronomy with students. They've done some incredible versions of astronomy with some of my students. I'm retired from teaching now, but back when I'd had a great time doing that.
But would they ask you about Metallica's version? I mean, would they?
We'd talk about that.
Yeah,
that was another thing that brought in a lot of people. Like, how did you get that? I don't know. Lars said he wanted to do it. And James, they're old fans of BOC.
The whole feel of that song, your original version.
Yeah.
The whole feel of that song is just, to me, that is just one of those stare at the speaker tunes, from the band's history. I really like that one.
Well, that was a magical time. We were recording at was Studio C for Columbia, which is this old church, and I had heard that it had a great history. First of all, the symphony orchestra, it was a huge studio, and they had, I don't know, a half a dozen grand pianos there. And they had this Boisendorfer, this huge Boisendorfer with 95 keys on it. It's like extra big. And that's what Alan played on, it's this huge piano. And that was the studio that Miles Davis did Kind of Blue. Wow. And that was the studio that Stravinsky recorded the orchestra in there. Dave Brubeck did Take Five in that studio. And now it's condos. We closed it down. It's gone. It was an old church. And, it was big enough to be able to put the whole orchestra in. But, it worked well on that particular song.
People always say, wow, we got in the room with that person. Oh, we toured with that person. I'm going, you do the work, you get there. I believe in luck, but you got to do the work. You've got to be able to, be cool, get along with people. Through the years, what has been for you? Obviously, you must have become friends with, who's the guys who through the years that you really connected with outside the band?
Well, I can tell you a little story. I went to see Metallica. This is about 1995.
Who recorded one of your songs?
And I didn't even know if they knew who I was.
Yeah.
But I got a backstage pass, and we're all waiting. They had everybody held up in the catering room. Everybody was in the catering room. And so I had the nice sort of management pass. Everybody else had to wait in there. So I'm walking down the hall, and I look over and, there's the bass player from Metallica. And I said, Jason, it's Joe Bouchard. He says, "You're Joe Bouchard?" And he grabs my hand. He would not stop. He would not let go of my hand.
That's got to feel good, man. That's got to feel good.
I was like, and they were just in front of 20,000 people, and everybody's going crazy, But I felt like I'm not really anybody. I'm just some guy hanging out backstage. So So I said, Jason, come on down to the catering room. I'll introduce you to the whole room. You know, you can sign some autographs and talk to my friends.
Yeah.
And all my friends there from the guitar workshop were there. And he's sitting down and says, that guy meant so much to me. So 2 years later, they record my song. They do a song I co-wrote with my brother and our manager, Sandy, Astronomy. And it changed my life. It really changed my life. I was doing all kinds of different things at the time. I was working at a publishing company. I learned the book business. I got my master's degree in music. You know, doing things, all of this kind of crazy stuff that I wanted to do. Go back to college. I've heard Rivers Cuomo went back to Harvard after he was a rock star. So I felt like I'm kind of following in Weezer's footsteps.
Yeah, I was just listening to their version of Astronomy this morning. Yeah.
Oh, God, is that good?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the fans still love the original version better. But to me, they did a brilliant job. I love James. Gives the hair stands up on the back of my neck when I hear James singing. You know, the melody that I wrote while I was walking on the beach. You know,
what was your reaction when you found out they were going to record it?
Well, at first I heard they were going to record a Blue Oyster Cult song. It was like the early days of the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the old AOL chat board.
Right.
America Online chat board. And I said, oh, well, that's great. You know, they'll probably do Reaper or one of the usuals, you know. But then a couple of weeks later, I found out they're doing Astronomy. And I said, wow, that's great. So I go down to my mailbox, my post box, and there's a cassette in my post box. I took cassette. You remember cassettes?
Mm-hmm.
I took the cassette out and put it in my car, my Datsun old radio, and I'm listening to Astronomy by Metallica. And I'm going, holy mackerel, this is good. I wanted to jump up and down, but I was driving. But I was really excited. And I'll never forget that feeling. So then we went and we met the rest of the guys. We went to the premiere of the album at a place in New York City. And they were really nice to us. And they were happy that we were happy that the way they did it. You know, not everybody is happy when you get a cover. You know, sometimes they're like, covers.
Yeah.
It changed my life. So then after that, I said, I got to get back to recording. First of all, I quit my day job. And I said, I've got to get back into writing songs again. I mean, this is a tremendous pat on the back as a songwriter to get a cover that was that huge all over the world. I would get statements from like, Brazil and Argentina and France and Germany, and like, wow, they're huge everywhere. You know, I mean, it's just luck. It doesn't happen. And I said, it's going to happen once, probably will never happen again. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
My Way or the Highway, saw the video.
Yeah.
Great riff, soaring vocals. This is stuff that I grew up with. I love. Tell me about that tune.
Well, it was based on, I was obsessed with the old TV series Route 66. And my girlfriend would say, why are you watching that stuff? It's terrible. And I said, wow, this is exciting. You know, two guys in a 1960 Corvette. So, and they're going all these adventures, you know, I don't know. You're probably too young to remember that. But it was in 1960 to 64. I was probably a young teenager, a very young teenager. And I thought that was about the most exciting thing. And to be able to travel like that was, you know, awesome to me, you know. And so I started with a riff that I called 59 Corvette. That was the riff. And it kind of sat around for a couple of years, but as I was working on this album, it popped back up, and I said, this could be good. And then the words it seemed to come together all at once,
By the way,
putting together.
I can hear you when you sing. Because I don't get lyric sheets barely ever, right? I like getting them, but I understand it's something that takes time, and especially when the album's not out yet. But with you, I could understand every word you were saying. I could understand, and I could follow the story, and I'd say, that makes a difference to me as a musicologist.
Yeah, I got a new mixer for this album. Normally, I mix everything myself, and it's a lot of work. Takes months, to mix an album properly. But Albert, my brother Albert, found this guy Steve Hardy. I don't know. I think he's from South Carolina. He's living in South Carolina now. And you send him the stuff and he sends it back. And the vocals, especially the vocals, are so well placed. It makes even Albert a singer. He can make Albert sound good. So, no, I'm just kidding. He's my brother. I love him. I
talked to him. Yeah. When I talked to him, I was saying, because you and I so enjoyed our first interview. I said, I think he said something like, "Hey, what about me, man?" I'm going, I don't know. I really like talking to Joe a lot. It's a lot of fun. You got a hard act to follow. By the way, 1976. What happened to you guys in 76? And you guys had success before, but I mean, this was like, how does that change? How did that change you with Agents of Fortune? How did that change the band? What?
Well, there was sort of, I don't know. Let's see. The guys, when I joined the band, they were pretty stubborn about their aesthetic. That they didn't want to do cheap pop music. They always wanted to do something that was a little, why is that?
I've never heard it said that way before.
Why is that? Well, it's just because we like it, and we were, but you do get pressure when something explodes like Don't Fear the Reaper, And Donald said, I'm not gonna write Reaper Part 2, put that out, So, but there was definitely pressure that, we did do some sort of commercial type records, but we wanted to keep that same aesthetic going, maybe, it was, yeah. And I think it was worth it for us to do that, at least in as much as we could, But we had a lot of recordings that we had to do. It was like a new recording every year. So,
were you able to breathe? I mean, you're all of a sudden, you got the Spectres comes out after.
We could pay our bills. We could pay our bills for the first time.
See, people don't understand. People don't understand that. They don't understand that in the formative years for a lot of their favorite rock bands. Even after the records are out, people don't understand. They just like the music. They think you're all, driving Porsche 911s.
Right.
Which sometimes is the case, but.
No, that was the Rush guys. See, they only had a 3-way split, so they got to drive the nice sports cars. I was still driving a Toyota.
The fact that a lot of you guys sang what made a real difference to me. I know some people just like the album on the wall there, Brad Delp, that for Boston, they want just one guy in that layered vocal.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted spice. Give me stuff.
Well, we come from the Beatles generation, and they managed to have 4 amazing vocalists. Yeah, I've been listening to the Beatles channel on one of those satellite things, and it's amazing. It's just amazing,
You ever meet one of them?
No. I've tried. I've met Mick Jagger. I've met cool. Roger Waters. I've met Pete Townsend. And they're those are probably the most famous people I know. When my friend Ian Hunter was playing with Ringo's All-Star Band, I went to see Ian perform a couple of shows with Ringo, and he said, "I'll try to get you to meet Ringo." Never happened. It was New York. It was out on Long Island. It just wasn't going to happen. It was, So that's okay. I've got to see Ringo play quite a few times, and I'm still waiting for his call.
Sending it up to the ether.
Every interview I mention this. Ringo, give me a call. I'll call you back. See, Ian didn't want to do it.
What would you tell Ringo Starr? What would you?
Oh, I'd say, when do we start? What songs do I need to know? I played with Ringo's musical director for many years. A good friend of ours.
I know. I have
saxophone player. He's on one of our albums. We gave him a job. Mark Rivera. We gave him a job on the. Let's see. It was the. Okay, now I'm the Cultosaurus Erectus album, and he had his band that he was playing in had broken up at the time. But my brother Albert's always the instigator about these things. Called him up, said, "Mark, can you play on our album?" And he really needed that gig. I mean, he was kind of like depressed about it. Then of course he goes on. He takes over the saxophone for Billy Joel, and then Ringo hires him for 15 years in a row. I don't know if he's doing it now, but I know Mark pretty well. So,
in the golden age, of course, you've got a couple of tracks that look back, and Up All Night, Sleep All Day. Tell me about that too.
Well, yeah, that's another. Well. It's kind of a strange story about this song. I had this music, and I got scammed. I'll tell you the whole story. I got scammed. I got a email from my manager. The manager says, "This looks interesting. How would you like to play in Hong Kong?" And it's a charity event. And so I discussed it back and forth with my manager, and so yeah, throw out a figure, and and I'll need expenses. And I was trying to, why would anybody call me to do a charity event in Hong Kong? So, but I was thinking, wait a minute, I had some students when I was teaching in a private school, and they were from Hong Kong, and very wealthy families. So I thought maybe one of my students, and I got suckered into this thing. It was, it's like one of those Nigerian prince things. So we sent emails back and forth, and then it started getting weird. They started offering me more money than I had asked for. I think I asked for $10,000, in first class flights, reasonable, But then they wanted to give me more money. And then they wanted me to bring a whole band with me, So the bill was, and they showed me pictures of the hotel I'd be staying in. They had names of all the people, the charity thing had been booked at a fancy hotel in Hong Kong. So I'm getting ready, and I say, I'm going to write a theme for this charity event. And it was going to be, and I talked to Mickey Curry, and I said, what's it like to play in Hong Kong, And he said, yeah, I played there a couple of times with Bryan Adams, it's really fantastic, I'm thinking, oh, wow, I'm getting more and more excited. So I write this song, and it was called Flying into Hong Kong, in the golden age. So then I start saying, hey, it just doesn't smell right. It just doesn't smell right. So I do a search. scam, Hong Kong scam. I find that there's at least a half a dozen other people got the same scam. And what it is, it's what they do is they send you a deposit, and you have there's a window of 3 days before the deposit will actually clear. So it looks like it's in your account. In the meantime, they make up this cockamamie story about, you got to send a deposit back right away because, people are dying of COVID or whatever, you got to send the money. So I found out that one of the singers from, I don't know, like American Idol or one of those big shows got that same scam. And then there was another guy who got a scam that was like a speaker who does promotional events, and he got scammed at a similar kind of thing in Tokyo. And I think the singer actually lost some money somehow, But I was like, oh my God, this is what I should have done first, was to Google, is there any Hong Kong scams out there? So anyway, to make the best of it, I just decided that it was going to be changed to a new song, and came up with In the Golden Age. I was thinking about, it's kind of a up-tempo song, fun. Excuse me. But yeah,
got a good song out of it.
Got a great song out of it, I think.
Yeah.
And I got my friend John Jorgensen. Well, Albert says to me, I like this and I like this, but that song needs a real hot guitar part. Why don't you get your friend John Jorgensen to play on the track? And so I sent John. John, I don't know if you know John. He played with Elton John for 6 years.
I know of him.
Yeah. And he plays with Chris Hillman. He did Chris Hillman's last album that was produced in Tom Petty's studio. He's played with the Byrds. He had a band called the Hellcasters, which was this hot Nashville group that put out like 3 or 4 instrumental albums that were really tremendous. And I got to go to Iraq with John in 2010 when I went on this USO style tour in Iraq. So I got to know John pretty well, and he played with the Desert Rose Band with Chris Hillman.
Jeez.
Anyway, so he came up with a fantastic guitar solo, and he does this sort of fast, almost country type picking thing at the end of the song. So that was definitely well worth it for John to do that. And then you get this Ace mixer to mix it. And
do you still talk to Buck?
Not really. I usually send him an email, see what's going on, Yeah, I mean, I sent him this one. I enjoyed making this album because I knew that Blue Oyster Cult, the other album, was coming out about the same time as the last Blue Oyster Cult album. And I had sent some of those songs to them to try, no obligation or anything, but I just wanted to hand them some songs if they were interested. And as it was, they had everything they needed, and they wanted to bring in the new guys and so on. But this album, I knew that the Blue Oyster Cult was not competing with this album. This is a total separate thing on its own. And I hope, so I didn't feel like, well, I should write in that Blue Oyster Cult style. But I never do that. But it ends up, falling,
It's you, though.
Hounds of Hell, Conspiracy, that's kind of BOC style. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, but you come upon it naturally because you were such a big part of that anyway.
Yeah,
you wrote a lot of songs.
Yeah.
Were you and Albert always close? When you were growing up, were you close?
Yes. We started a band when I was 10. He was 11. We played our first gig for the Boy Scouts at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Clayton, New York. And and from there on, it was all up. It was all up. Of course, so we were together for about 6 years. Most high school bands, they're together for a couple of months and they move on, But we had a very, very sort of tight local group from a small town, and we were together through junior high school and high school. Finally, Albert went to college at Clarkson in upstate New York, Clarkson College, and met Buck Dharma there at Clarkson, and they had a band. So I was doing other styles of music back in Clayton, and but I followed what Albert was doing with Buck, or Don Roser as he was known back then, Donald, and they got a deal with Elektra, and they got 2 half albums done. They never really got anything released officially with Elektra. It came out years later on Rhino Records, and I love their music, So as soon as I graduated from college in 1970, things weren't working out with their bass player, so I was there. I was ready. I was ready to take over my chair. He was just keeping it warm for me.
But having brothers in the band, did that ever cause any conflict? Were you guys? As far as the democracy
not
of
really.
the band.
Not really that much until, of course, the end. I don't know. You probably Albert's probably told you the story about things weren't working out. It was 1981, so I was in the band with him for 11 years, and then I left the band in '86. 5 years later, we had a couple of different drummers. But I thought it was time for a change for me. And then after I got out of the band, he calls me up and say, "Hey, how would you like to be the keyboard player in the Spencer Davis group?" Now that was cool. Because, of course, back in high school and college, Spencer Davis group was like great. And he said,
Eddie Harding wasn't with them then?
No. It was just Spencer.
Right.
And he was looking for a band that would be his sort of East Coast band. And I got to play keyboards. So I got to be Steve Winwood.
Wow.
a sort of a Steve Winwood. I went out, bought a new keyboard, right? Charged it on my credit card. So yeah, that was a good time. Then we didn't play together for a long time. He went off and started a band called the Brain Surgeons. I had a band called X Brothers, and then I got involved with a bunch of other bands. And then the Brain Surgeons sort of fell apart. And Albert says, "How'd you like to play? Why don't we play with Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper, So that was the birth of Blue Coupe, which is doing, even though we've been quiet for a while, we do have a new project coming out probably in the fall. It's going to be like a double CD DVD project because we got some videos, we got animations, we got some rare tracks. We got Robbie Krieger playing on one of the songs.
Wow.
From The Door. He wrote the song. This is a song he gave to Blue Oyster Cult back in the 80s. And I had this tape. It's one of those things. I never throw anything out. I had this tape in my attic, and it's Robbie Krieger doing this song, Dark Cloud, Black Cloud. And so we worked it up. But now we've got this new project coming out. Albert sends it to Robbie. He puts on this slide guitar that sounds just like the Doors. I mean, we're all older people now. We're mature people. But when we get a chance to do a project, even if it's just like in your home studio and they hand it off. So he sent us this thing, and I said, "Wow, that's amazing," So he'll be on that new project with Dennis, and we're coming up to your neck of the woods in July. We're doing a Canada tour with 5-6 shows.
I think since I've talked to you, I've moved completely on the other side of the country. I was in Calgary. I think I was in Calgary when I talked to you the first time. Now I'm in Moncton, New Brunswick. Right on the east.
New Brunswick. Okay. We're going to be in Quebec.
Oh, you're too far away.
Quebec, yeah. Quebec City, Montreal, Toronto. We're doing the El Mocambo.
Oh, El Mocambo, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a historic place,
Yeah.
And so, in Hamilton, we used to go to Hamilton all the time. And so we're doing that in July. And then the Bouchard brothers are going to Scotland, England, and France in August. So,
hey man, again, when I listen to the album, and I always do this when I'm listening to people that I used to buy when I was younger, and I listen to an album. Like I said, there's no guarantees. Half the time they're good albums. The other time, they just still wanted to make music. But the fact that you're still doing something that's worthy, that's really good. Like lots of, it's juicy stuff, man. You can sink your teeth into it. Deadly Kisses, for instance. I listened to that and I stepped back and I listened to that 3 times going, that is just a gorgeous song.
Yeah. It just came to me almost, another thing. It just came to me at once. I was waiting for a student to show up for a lesson. He didn't show up, but there was this old out-of-tune piano in another little practice room. And I just started playing these chords on this out-of-tune piano, and like, oh yeah, this could be good. And that's another one that sat around for a few years in my thing. And I love the melodies to that. The chords are kind of odd, and then it came out really good. Mm-hmm. That was one, like, you would take a ballad, you'd put it towards the end of the record, but Albert said, you got to put that up there at the front because, people have to hear this, It's one of the things they have to hear.
See, Love Out of Thin Air is another one. Soaring vocals on the chorus. It's catchy. One of my favorite songs off the album. Love that.
Big choruses. I was definitely into the big chorus thing. I've been studying, production of, as you were saying before, like a Boston record, how did they get that, real pile-on kind of stuff. So, and a lot of that one especially started with the chorus. I had the chorus for a month or so before I did the verses on that. And, that was an easy one. But, I had the time to do it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Off-Season Hotel, I was, it's strange because of the mysterious dreams all in my head. I immediately pictured the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. What's that song about?
That's what it's about. When I was before I was in Blue Oyster Cult, I had 2 summers, fantastic summers in the Thousand Islands, where I was the house band in the Thousand Islands Club, this summer resort. It was fantastic. We got paid good money, really good money, put us up. We had, put us up, gave us free food. And that was our summer job for 2 summers. But this phenomenon would happen on Labor Day weekend, which is the 1st of September. There'd be a big party, and then everybody just splits. And they head back down to Florida to their winter job, And I go back to school. But I had such a fantastic time there. So fast forward about 30 years, and Albert says, hey, do you want to go to Florida? We're playing in a hotel, this big convention for the Ghost Hunters. There was a TV show called The Ghost Hunters. And So I said, sure, that sounds like fun, you know? And so we fly down to Florida and the band, and we played an event outside at the hotel. And then later that day, we're in the bar, and they have all these TV monitors. And I'm saying, what the heck is that? So they have cameras up in the attic of the hotel looking for ghosts.
Find any?
Yeah, well, so they came. This woman comes over, says, "You want to go on a ghost hunt?" I said, "Sure." You know, so it's midnight. They give us, night vision goggles and these listening devices, and we go up to there, and she's giving us a tour of this thing, and this is where the servants or the staff would live, and their ghosts are probably here. Some of them died, you know, they probably died up there. We're going, oh. So we're listening 2 hours for 2 hours. Didn't find any ghosts.
Do you believe
But it was, what an experience. What an experience.
Why say no to that? I mean.
No, you got to do it. And all the guys from the TV show were there, and they were giving talks, and our friend, our friend Helen Robbins' brother was a UFO expert. He's an expert on UFOs. So he had a big presentation on UFOs and his books on UFOs. So it was a lot of good. And who is the actress from The Shining, or not The Shining? It was anyway, there was actresses there. You know, it was just a lot of fun. So I sort of put my early story together with this later story. And that's what Off-Season Hotel is. And that's another one where John Jorgensen, who plays this incredible flamenco guitar, does guitar parts in that song. So
Would you and your brother ever go back?
Oh, I don't think. Well, I doubt we'd ever. We have so much going on now, and also it can never really be what it was because we're much older now. You know, there may be a special event, you know, in the future, but it certainly wouldn't be, a continuous tour like those were. Those endless tours. No, it would be an event if it happens.
You don't miss that though, do you?
No. I mean, I think it's sometimes it gets a little. I have to remind everybody. No, I'm not in the. I get emails like every week. I get emails. Are you going to be at the show? No, I'm. You know, they got Danny playing bass now, so and.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot from guys who've been out of bands for years.
And they still get their friends, their high school friends or ex-students or, you know, and I'd like, you know, and usually I'll send if it's somebody really important, I'll send it to Donald and he'll take care of the guest list, you know. So, yeah, it's good, you know.
You got an interesting theme, though. You go from Off-Season Hotel to the Hounds of Hell, which really, with the drum beat, you can tell from the drum beat right away. Oh, this is getting interesting. And what did I write? Oh, you keep on going when you're going through hell. True fact. True fact.
Yes, you keep on going. Well, I got that quote from, I think it was Winston Churchill. So I'm trying to write these songs. And, so you start researching, you know, and going to quotation websites and stuff. It's actually a lot of fun, you know. And I end up doing a lot of reading and a lot of poetry and trying to raise the level of the lyric. That one, I love that song.
Don't you think that's good for your mind, though? I'm listening to you say this, and I'm going, this is similar to, I mean, I'm just reading Moby Dick for the first time. Call me Ishmael. I've never read it, and I'm going, what about To Kill a Mockingbird? What about To Catcher in the Rye?
I know. I know.
But don't you find in your line of work, even though you're doing what you do, this is good for you, good for your mind. Never lose your purpose. I always say, never lose your purpose.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is the most songs that I've ever written for one album. I wrote every note of every song. There's two songs that have lyrics by other people. John Shirley, who I worked with on the last album, and he writes a lot for the current Blue Oyster Cult. Fabulous writer. Actually, I haven't got anything from him in a while. I gotta get a hold of him. And then Helen Wheels wrote the lyrics to Catherine, which is an old lyric from the 80s. That was another one of those things that was just sitting around, and I finally said, I've got to write this song,
Catherine's a good driving song. I like the feel of it,
Yeah, a little bit. I felt a little bit of maybe a little Bruce Springsteen vibe to it, maybe a little, Dire Straits, maybe, and yeah. So that one was another. That one came out real easy, and yeah, that was easy to write and easy to record. Some of these others you struggle for weeks just to get the right balance, and then right lyric. The second verse is always a problem. You had to rewrite the second verse. So yeah.
Now, you have a song called Conspiracy on here. See, conspiracies become political now. I mean, it was pretty broad. I could have gotten more specific because everywhere you turn is the conspiracy thing, the conspiracy theory of this. I mean, goes to back when I was a little kid. There was the Kennedy conspiracy, but it's out of control. I don't want to get political, but it's out of control. I mean, because we have this ability to, put things up on the internet, and it just spirals. So anyway, yeah. And that's one I had a different set of lyrics for it, but I felt like this reminds me of the feel of a Motown song, So it should bounce along too. It's catchy.
So,
it's a very catchy tune.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in a doctor's office. Someone's beside you. You're striking up a conversation. Someone says, "So, not what you're in for. What do you do? What do you say?"
Oh, I say I'm a professional musician and recording artist, and
but the next question.
Yes, are you a rock star? And I said, sure.
So
I in my younger days, I was full-fledged. Now I'm sort of like the legacy artist. The legacy artist who is sort of dabbling around here, and every once in a while I can try to hit a bullseye,
But they're going to ask you, have you done anything that I would know of? And of course, there's no one unless you're living under a rock.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, they sometimes they don't know the name Blue Oyster Cult, especially if they're a younger generation. But then I say, well, have you heard of the phrase more cowbell? Yeah. Well, that was our band that started that whole thing rolling, from the recording and then the comedy and, and it's iconic in the culture,
Do you find that? Go ahead.
You don't know, how those things happen, but it was just one of those little things, and it doesn't bother me. And I think everybody in the band feels the same way. We're happy that we get recognized, even if it's for just the cowbell. But then it opens up the catalog, and there's like depth to those songs. There's depth to those songs, and and it still has a life of its own. It's fantastic, you know.
Rocket Flame.
Yeah.
Another one that looks
Rocket
back
Flame.
at I like the audience in the beginning. Looks back at another time.
Yeah, that is like when Don't Fear the Reaper became a hit. We were on that the roller coaster. We was headed up the deep dive, up for the deep dive, and you just that's what that's about. Ride the roller coaster rocket to fame.
How did your parents? Were they still around when?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When all that happened, what was their reaction to it? I mean, they're boys. I mean, not just one kid, both kids in that genre. I mean, how many people in your family? How many siblings do you have?
There were 7 of us. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister.
How did the family react to it? I mean, I know that's an obvious question.
Oh, they loved it. They loved it. Yeah. Of course, when I first joined the band, my mother was so happy because I could keep an eye on my older brother. Oh, I'm so glad you joined the band because you could keep an eye on him, keep him out of trouble. We did okay. We didn't get into that much trouble. None that we want to talk about.
Yeah, I know, of course. The Devil in the Detail, beautiful song, gorgeous. I like that. It's obviously synth orchestra, right?
Yeah, synth orchestra.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's John Shirley's lyric. He sent those lyrics to another song, but I didn't use them. They didn't fit. And then, as I was working on this, I just found those lyrics, and I said, "I'll write something new for this." And I think it fit the lyrics really well. It's a great 3-tiered story. The waitress at the diner, that's the first story. The second story is the cop who stops you for speeding, and there's a little kind of a story to that. And then the third story is the lady in the church lady. And the devil's in the details. And then, the story sort of expands a little bit. But he's great at, making those little just short poems, just so well balanced and nuanced. So
and it makes you think. It makes you think. It makes you think. That's what those things do.
Devil's in the details.
Yeah. Okay. In high school, were you that music guy?
Yes.
And in high school, were you ever play in your high school?
Oh yeah, yeah. We went back to my high school. They awarded Albert and me it was the Thousand Islands Music Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did a performance at the thing. It was packed. It was fantastic.
Okay, I know.
Yes, I was that music guy.
Beatles or Stones or both?
I'd say Beatles, but I love the Stones. I love all. Hey, I got to meet Mick.
Oh, what was that like, by the way? What was that like?
Well, I was down in the Caribbean, in this private island, and he invited us to his New Year's Eve party on the beach, and it was fantastic. He actually asked me questions about a show that he saw. This was 2008. He was talking about a show that he went to see, Blue Oyster Cult, in 1975 in Paris, France. He says, there was a place, the abattoir, the slaughterhouse was this place in Paris, and the Stones played there after we played there. There was so generally he was just nice and gracious, and I was playing a party at a friend's house on the beach. The parties only last about 20 minutes in these places. I can't tell you everything, but the parties would be at one guy's house, and then everybody goes to the next guy's house, and they have another 20-minute party, and then they finally end up at Mick's house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Outside of music, what are you best at?
I've been learning to play golf. I'm
Has
not
that been
good,
is it challenging?
Yeah. Well, I want to play with Alice Cooper. He was in Connecticut a couple of years ago, and I was, I'll go play with you. And he gets up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, he's on the links at 7. You know, and so I was saying I got to be as good enough so that I don't embarrass myself. I did do a charity event with some rock guys. What's his name from Grand Funk?
Oh, Mark Farner?
Mark Farner. And I definitely can play golf better than Mark Farner. I saw him chasing balls in the woods.
Yeah, he's another great interview. I've talked to him twice.
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. 3 songs you wished you would have written. One.
Oh, God only knows. God only knows what I would write.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
There's a couple right there. Don't Worry, Baby. I'd take those 3.
There's a theme right there. Hey, Brian Wilson. Have you ever met Brian? He would be an interesting guy to talk to. I'm not sure how... I don't mean disrespect because he's Brian Wilson, how present he is. I hope he's present, but...
I've tried to meet him, but you know how difficult it is.
He's very protected. Yeah.
So, but I did see... I did have a situation where we sort of bumped into each other. And I went to this club in New York, and he was doing his Gershwin's show. Do you remember he did an album, Brian Wilson Reimagines Gershwin? Probably not. Missed it. Fantastic album. And his band did a whole set of George Gershwin songs. He had the Gershwin family gave him the rights to 2 unfinished songs, and he finished them on that album. But the whole thing was good, and it's very Beach Boys like versions of. But so in the show, he'd be doing songs like "Summertime." There was his voice just like "Summertime," and the whole audience just gasped. You know, it was so amazing. So after the show, I'm headed out on the street, and there's this bus in front of the theater. And I'm saying, well, I'll just take a peek in there. It's probably the bus driver sitting there. And I knocked on the window, and it's Brian. He's sitting in the front seat. And I said, great show. And he waved, and he smiled. And I said, I can die happy now.
Well, you did kind of meet him.
Yes. Yeah, he waved, and he smiled. I think he was really happy with that show. Because it was, I thought it was artistic triumph. I've seen, 100 Brian Wilson shows, from the Beach Boys, and, his solo shows, Pet Sound show, Smile show, the reunion show, and that was enough. A big smile. He was on the phone, he waved and acknowledged. It was a great show.
Okay, I come up to you and I say, listen, I'm serious. If a student comes up to you and say, I'm really serious on looking back and finding out the great albums. What are the top 3, this kid's asking you, what are the top 3 albums I should start with?
You're talking about Blue Oyster Cult?
Or Blue Oyster Cult or anybody. Do both. Can you do both? We got 8 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time.
Albums.
Blue Oyster Cult. What about Blue Oyster Cult? What do you think the 3 albums? If you want to introduce someone to this great band you were part of, what would you?
Oh, Agents of Fortune. Fire of Unknown Origin with Burning for You on it, and the first album. That would my personal favorite is the first album, but I think the songs with the hits on them are easy to for anybody to understand. First album's very confusing.
A lot going on.
But it's got Cities on Flame, it's got Last Days of May, Stairway to the Stars. Yeah.
You've got at least, I think, 2 songs in your top 10 on Spotify from the first album. There you go.
Yeah.
That says something. What's been the low point of your career, and what's been the highest point of your career?
Oh, well, after I left Blue Oyster Cult, I spent 2 years trying to be a record producer. I did not know what I was doing. I mean, I had worked with some of the great producers. I worked with Martin Birch and Bruce Fairburn and Tom Werman and Sandy Pearlman and Murray Krugman. And I thought, if I can do what they do, And I figured musically, I probably have the chops, I know when something's in tune and in time. But the business side of it, ooh, I was not prepared for that, And also I was not prepared for how long it would take. It takes a good 10 years to break in as a producer, unless you get really lucky, So after 2 years, I just said, no, I'm done with this, And I learned a lot. That's the problem with being a rock star. You don't learn that much. And I had to get out of Blue Oyster Cult to find out what else is in the world. I had no idea how normal people paid bills or, how they dealt with families and, life, So, but now I'm pretty happy, and I'm happy you like this album.
I like one last thing. What's the craziest thing a fan has ever done to you and or the band? You know what Ian Anderson told me? That someone threw a used tampon at him. There you go.
God.
Can't beat that.
I don't know. I fans have always been really nice to me, No, I can't find anything.
Hope you enjoyed our conversation with Joe Bouchard. It's the second time we've ever talked to him, and he's always a pleasure to talk to. Links to the new album in the description of this video. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. And the 2 P's of how you can help us out. Patreon. You can join our Patreon and get access to our videos sometimes over a month and a half early, or you can make a donation on PayPal. All the links are in the description.